Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here on the Sports Daily Media Network YouTube channel. We've got our week 3 top 25. We've got a couple of teams to go over. Here's our week 2 top 25 up on the screen, and we've got the as I fill them in, we'll go with week 3 there, but this is how we're gonna refer to the teams in the future. So if you see them on posts, game posts, all that, we'll be using our rankings, not the Associated Press. A lot of voters there don't watch ball. So let's start from the bottom like we did last time. And our new 25th team is going to be Utah. Do not believe we have them on here. Yep, so we're going to have to make a color for them. Utah has looked pretty impressive so far, putting themselves in the conversation for that Big 12 spot. They've been looking pretty solid so far, so that's why they're in there. They're 2-0, an impressive couple of victories. This Big 12 is opened up pretty significantly based on what another team in the Big 12 did this weekend, but 63-point win, or 63-9 win over Cal Poly, and then a 33-point victory on the road against UCLA in week 1. So Utah, our 25th ranked team. All right, up we go to number 24. We've got our 23rd ranked team from last week, Tulane, taking one step back. The Group of 5 contender struggled with South Alabama this week. That was a close game that could have gone either way. Tulane still scores a lot of points. They are in an American Conference that is really, really impressive this year. I think there's a couple good teams in there, between another team that's higher on the rankings, and then, Navy is good this year. Memphis is good. Army just beat a Big 12 team. So the American Conference has a couple of teams. All right, up to 23. We're going to keep this color, and it is that team from the same conference, the University of South Florida. Beat the brakes off Boise State week 1. Beat Florida in the Swamp this week. They are a contender for the Group of 5 spot as well right now. And an American Conference championship threat, and they have got Miami next week. They've looked good so far. They can make a real statement by winning that one. All right, up we go. We're going to stay in the Big 12, and Texas Tech will be holding serve there. They played a bye game this week, won by a bunch of points. Not much we can talk to them about there. All right, up we go to number 21, and we're going to be bringing Arizona State down from 11th to 21st. They went down to Starkville, Mississippi, to play Mississippi State. They were totally outplayed in the first half. They're down 17-0. Maybe the atmosphere got to them there, but they fought all the way back and they took the lead late. It looked like they were going to win the game, and then not quite a Hail Mary, but a deep pass at the end of it. They stole it back. Mississippi State stole it back. So Arizona State's still a really good team. They still got Sam Leavitt. They've still got Kenny Dillingham. They're still a threat to win the Big 12. So they're not dropping out of our rankings. A couple of the other teams in there that lost, like Michigan, like SMU, like Florida, we have removed from the top 25. All of them were not impressive. Alabama is still not in the top 25 also, so let's keep going. Up the list, number 20, we've got Tennessee, a big victory against a bye-game opponent. Really like what I've seen so far from them. They beat Syracuse by a bunch. They seem to have won. They're on the winning side of this Nico Amaliava situation. Joey Aguilar's a good quarterback. He's making plays, and they're still scoring a lot of points. The SEC is really tough. I don't know if they can make the college football playoff, but they're still a top 25 team in my mind. All right, up to number 19, we've got Louisville. On Friday night, they played James Madison, a good Group of 5 team from the Sun Belt, and while the game was tight early, they did end up winning by 2 touchdowns. I was impressed by both teams in this one, to be honest with you. A lot of good play there from Louisville. James Madison, a team that could win the Sun Belt. So Louisville up to 19. All right, to 18, we've got Texas A&M. Not much for them to talk about. They had a big win against a bye game. Their SEC slate is very difficult. They haven't quite hit the heights that we've expected from them in years past, but they have quite the test next week when they go up to South Bend to play Notre Dame, a team that beat them on their patch last year. So something to look out for there for A&M. They beat Utah State by 22 this week. Should have been a little more, honestly. All right, up to 17th, we've got Oklahoma up 8 spots after their win against Michigan at home. Totally outclassed the Wolverines. John Mateer looks like he's a good quarterback at the college level. Now, he may have to play hero ball at times this year to win enough games in the SEC, but I thought their offensive line was good enough. I think they have a couple of playmakers who might be able to cause some problems. Again, I think it's a pretty similar outlook to Texas A&M. I think the playoff will be hard. They just have so many tough games, but I think there's a chance that they can stay in and around the top 25. A couple things go their way. Who knows? Maybe you can back yourself into the playoff. All right, up to 16, a team that I really should have put in last week but didn't, and it's Iowa State. They got the big win against Kansas State in week 0 in Ireland. They played really well against Iowa this week at home. They got, you beat Iowa at home, so what? That's a rivalry game that they have not had a lot of success in the past. Rocco Becht made the plays. They have Kyle Conradi, their kicker, is really good at difference maker, and they're going to be in contention for the Big 12 championship, at least for the time being. All right, up to 15th we go. It's another team that played an up-and-down game. It's Missouri. They played the border war this week against Kansas. And Bo Perbula, the Penn State transfer, is their quarterback. And they are just scoring a ton of points. I mean, that game was 42-31 Missouri, I think. And Missouri scored a lot. Now, their defense is a different story. They are going to have to shore that up to be able to stay at this level in the SEC. But their schedule is on the lighter side for SEC standards. They score a lot of points. I think there is a chance to make the college football playoff. You'll have to see where I have them in that regard coming up in the next few days when we do our playoff projections. But I really like Missouri so far. They're fun to watch. They have a big win against a rival, and they're making plays, so they're 15 for me. All right, staying in the SEC for 14th, we're going with Ole Miss. They went on the road and played an SEC game this week against Kentucky. If you remember last year, Kentucky went to Ole Miss and beat them, which sort of ruined their chances at the college football playoff. It was late-ish in the year that, the Rebels would have been in the playoff had they not lost that. So a little bit of revenge angle there. But Ole Miss came out slow. They're playing with their food. They end up winning by 7, but they got the job done. They win. Obviously, an SEC road win is an SEC road win, but don't think much changes there for Ole Miss. All right, up to 13, we've got the Florida State Seminoles. Sort of a product of a ton of teams in front of them losing. Not a ton, but a couple. Michigan, SMU, Florida. They played East Texas A&M, beat them 77-0. They're going to be a problem in the ACC. Clemson hasn't been ranked yet. Miami hasn't been ranked yet, but I think that third team in the ACC is the Seminoles right now. Castellanos is a good quarterback. I like how they, kept the pedal down and continued to score. That is, something that a lot of teams, it's hard to maybe give your best effort in some of these bye games where you're going to win by 40, but they were on it, they were sharp, and they got a big deserved victory. So going to look out for them here in the future. All right, to 12th, we've got Indiana. They played Kennesaw State this week, and after a week 1 victory against Old Dominion, they ran the ball a ton. They dominated on the ground. They end up winning by 14, but they got the offense going against Kennesaw, getting to 56 points. Fernando Mendoza looked much sharper. The timing was better. Elijah Surratt, 3 touchdowns. That was more like the Cignetti offense that we saw last year. And I think they're going to be, They've got two really tough games to start out the Big Ten, being on the road at Iowa and at home to Illinois, and I think that's going to be their season right there. They've got on the road at Oregon, on the road at Penn State. Not sure many people expect them to compete there, but there's a chance Indiana can be 10-2, or in the maybe back half of the top 25 and maybe even out of it if they lose some of these games. But 12 for Indiana. All right, up to number 11, we've got Notre Dame. Did not play this week. Sort of a idle for them. Their schedule looks tough coming up. Obviously, the A&M game that I talked about, but they didn't play this week, so not much to report there. All right, up to number 10, we've got Illinois. Very impressive victory for them on the road at Duke. They win 45-19. A little bit of a slow start for them there, but it felt like they should have been losing. They weren't, and then when it stopped feeling like they should be losing, started playing better. They blew out Duke. They got 5 takeaways. The offense is explosive, and that'll be a good one there in Bloomington. I think it's week 5 for Illinois against Indiana. All right, to 9th, we've got Clemson. A little bit of a scary situation there with Troy having a 16-0 lead sort of deep in the second quarter there, but Clemson, didn't let Troy score again, end up winning by double digits. They weren't sharp to start this game. I think it's just because it was Troy. I don't know if they do that very often. They came out sharp against LSU. Now, they didn't play very well down the stretch, but I still think they will have a chance to win the ACC. Good teams who start slow against these scrubs that they play. I don't know if there's a whole much to look into there, but they're staying at 9. They're actually going down a spot to 9 for me. All right, up to number 8, we've got South Carolina. Pretty similar for them, but they played South Carolina State, slow start, ended up blowing them out. They have a tough schedule in the SEC. It is going to be tough for them to make the playoff just because of that, but they're looking good so far. All right, up to 7, we've got Georgia. Not a ton for them. They've beaten 2 inferior opponents by a lot of points. Expect that. They have a big game next week in the SEC. That will show us more about who they really are. All right, up to 6th, we've got Miami staying pat there. Not much to do with them either. They won big. Carson Beck had a nice stat line. Not much to report from there. All right, Oregon rounds out our top 5. They played Oklahoma State, and they beat them 69-3. I know Oklahoma State isn't very good. They are going to be at the bottom of the Big 12 this year, but you don't see FBS teams do that to other FBS teams more often, let alone a power conference team against another power conference team. I think Oregon's offense is a little bit more explosive than we gave them credit for. Dante Moore looks good. They still have explosive players. I think Oregon might be a little better than people think. All right, our top 4 is going to be staying the same. All of them beat inferior opponents by a lot, but we will, not learning a ton from any of them there. Luckily, they were all pretty, they were close early, probably a little closer at halftime than for LSU, for Texas, but they ended up winning by significant margins, so they will stay in our top 4. So that is our new top 25 for Week 3. Tune in next weekend as we go over our pre-Week 4 rankings. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.